some advice on how to prepare yourself emotionally and physically in order to carry out this Khalifah method. While it is simple, I don't want to make it seem like it is, I mean, it's easy to do, but it's a lot of work, right? Just physically, you have to do more with the kids, right? So physically, you have to be prepared to give the children more than you normally give them. But the emotional part is really a critical thing here. One of the reasons people like punishment so much, and why punishment is so widely used, is with the laws of learning, the time between the response and the reward is very critical. With human beings, the ideal would be 1/2 second. After the response, the reward, 1/2 second, it does the most effective learning. If you want a child to do something or to stop doing something, and you threaten them or you hit them, they will do what you want or stop what you want right away. So your response is harshness. The reward is you get what you want from the child virtually immediately. And so therefore, it is a very powerful learning experience. And that is why punishment is so widely used and so widely liked by many people in the world, because it works very well and very quickly. It seems to work well. I mean, there are a lot of negative side effects to it. Reward, on the other hand, and this is where you need to prepare yourself. If you switch, and by the way, if you have been managing your class with a lot of harshness, I don't suggest you immediately switch to no harshness and only positiveness. The children will take so much advantage of you quickly that you will not like using positiveness, and you will think it's not going to work, and you'll go right back to the negativeness. So you make the transition slowly in the shaping process. But you have to remember that positiveness does not give you an immediate reward. So you need in your minds to realize what is happening. And you need to reward yourself for what you give the children, and know that it is going to long-term have a positive effect, even though you don't see that positive change quickly in the children. And that is a very critical thing in using this. And then you start looking for slight changes in the children. With behavior, with punishment, you can get big changes in behavior quickly. But they are not long-term changes, and they are not sincere changes, and the children may hate you for it and grow up thinking punishment is the way to go. So there's lots of bad things that come with punishment. There's no bad things come with reward, except it doesn't happen quickly. And you may have to, I was at somebody's house once, and they had a 2-year-old boy, and we were sitting on the floor, and he kept wanting to grab my glasses. Now, I can't let him grab my glasses because the glasses are too delicate to be handled by a 2-year-old child. So every time he went to grab for my glasses, I would quickly grab his arm and say, "No, you can't touch my glasses." I say, "No, when I say no, I really mean no." And this child tried at least 20 times to grab my glasses. And every time he did it, I just grabbed him and never said harshly to him. I just explained to him, "No, I won't let you grab my glasses." And after 20 times, he gave up trying. And then I say to him, "Oh, look, you can sit here with me and you're not grabbing my glasses. That's really nice, thank you. That's very good, right?" And then the next time I went to visit, he's even more friendly to me. See, even though I had 20 times corrected his behavior, he didn't feel any negative feelings toward me because I never did it negatively. And I was willing to put up with doing this 20 times, which I didn't really enjoy having to do 20 times, but I'm willing to do it 20 times because I know eventually it will work. And I am really sure, you see, because I've done this many times in my life, so I know for sure. You haven't done it many times, so you have to sort of take it on belief that it will work. But it is important for you to give yourself reward for doing the right thing, even when you haven't seen the reward of the change in the child's behavior yet. That's probably the most critical psychological thing that you have to prepare yourself for, that you're not going to get the changes you want immediately. Because this program we're talking about, it's not a miracle, right? Miracles, they work immediately. This works slowly and consistently, but it will always work. By the way, I say how important it is to be consistent. If you are not consistent with a child, say for instance, you set a rule for the child, and you apply it, sometimes, and sometimes you don't, and maybe sometimes you can let the child do it 4 or 5 times until you get really angry, and then you apply the rule. What you are teaching the child is the child never knows whether the rule is going to be applied or not. So that's not fair for the child. It puts them in a state of uncertainty. This is why gambling is so effective and such an addictive thing on people. Although ultimately everyone loses who gambles, on any given gamble, you have a chance of winning, and you never know whether you will win or not. And that maintains a behavior for a long, long time, even though you're not getting rewarded. The same thing is true with children. You can maintain a wrong behavior for a very long time if you put the children on what's technically called a variable schedule of reinforcement, meaning they never know whether that bad behavior, they can get away with it or not. So they always take the chance. But if you are consistent, they know, they learn very quickly, they can never get away with it, then they don't take the chance. So if you are not consistent with a child, you're not being fair to the child, because you're putting them in a situation where they are for sure going to try out things that will get them in trouble. So that's
I just want to touch about the consistency, because what happens is if it's the child is in the kindergarten, we will set a good role for the child. But when the child comes back at home, the role of the parents and other brothers and sisters have shown differently. So these are the critical part that we have problem in building a consistency.
Absolutely, that is a major problem, and we all know that happens.
So how do we go about on
the consistency? Various ways. I'll tell you what we are doing in our school. For parents to get to put their children in our school, they have to sign a contract with us saying they will learn this method and use the same method in the home that we use in the school. Now that's the ideal, but often you don't get to do that. So what we say to children sometimes is, in the school, this is the way we do it, because this is really the right way, and this is the best way, and it will be very happy, and it works good. And not everybody does it this way, because they haven't learned to yet. And so maybe at home, or with your friends, or your relatives, maybe they're not going to do all these good things that we say. So we say to them, this is your opportunity. If the child is old enough to understand these words, this is your opportunity to use your self-control that we have taught. You see them do it, and you say with your mind, what they are doing isn't right. I'm not going to do that. And that's about the best you can do. I mean, see, ideally, we will eventually have a society where those wrong influences don't exist. Right now, this happens all the time. Basically, the graph looks like this. You go to school, you make progress. You go home, you drop off, and it's like that. We want it to go like this. If possible, try and get the parents in the home to learn the same method and agree to do it in the home. And also, we say to parents, if possibly with your neighbors and your relatives, if you can teach them, then their children, who your children interact with, they will get those same influences, and it will make the good things you are teaching your children more effective. And that's really all I can suggest. If we had a more perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about that problem, but it is a big problem. Okay, what if after using beautiful words and wisdom to the people who do something wrong for a long period of time and still there is no change? Yes, occasionally that will happen. So, remember I was talking about everything works on a shaping process. And But if the person doesn't make the early steps in the shaping process, you never get the chance to reward them for it, and so they're not likely to change their behavior. And so I try and set up situations where it will make the right behavior occur, even if artificially, and give me the chance to reward it. It is very rare to come across somebody who is not receptive to positive influence. But one thing that I forgot to mention that's very critical when you are trying to positively influence the children is how they feel about you. The better your relationship is with the child, meaning the more they love you and respect you, the more power your words and your rewards will have on them. And if the relationship is not good, please don't expect your reward to be rewarding. Sometimes, actually, I'm sure none of you are actually disliked by your children, but if somebody tries to reward you who you really hate, you don't even want that reward, and you would reject it as reward rather than take it from somebody you had that bad feeling about. But it is really very noticeably true. The better you can make your relationship with the child, the more effective your influence will be in general, the more powerful your reward will be. So you don't have to give as much reward, and you don't have to give it as often if your relationship is very, very good. The children that I had known for 4 or 5 years in my experimental school and had a really good relationship with, it was often just a word or two, and their behavior would change. So, what I would say in answer to that, if I don't see any change, I would try something different to try and get that behavior to occur so that I could give it some reward. And if there was still no change, I would think maybe there's either something wrong with my technique or something wrong with that person, and I'm looking for an alternative way to deal with it. Please explain how to help others to be good. Well, helping others to be good is just giving lots and lots of reward for good behavior. And little kids, I mean, I'm sure you've seen how receptive little kids are, and how much they love to get rewarded, you know. And with little kids, you exaggerate it. I mean, with little kids, like they do something, you say, "Oh, that is so great! Oh, I'm so happy you did that." You see, but if you do that with a teenager, they say, "Oh, come on, what is wrong with you?" So you have to give your reward appropriate to the age and the maturity of the person. But with little kids, give them huge, exaggerated reward, and they really respond well to it. And reward works very well on children who are not even verbal yet, right? I mean, you can go to them, you give a big smile and go, like that, right? And they know that is something good. They'll go and they'll smile and they'll do this too. And they'll like to do those things you want to do. Basically, increasing the amount of goodness in others around you is two things. One, you set an example of goodness yourself so that they model behavior. Because teachers are hopefully well liked and respected, when you like somebody a lot and respect them a lot, you tend to model on their behavior. You can actually see this with kids sometimes. I mean, if they really like you, you do something, they're not shy to just do the same thing that you just did right in front of you. So that shows the power of your modeling. And then just so you be a really good model of good behavior to them and give them lots and lots of reward. And I guess maybe for Malays in Singapore, it might be the same as I hear people are in Malaysia, which is in Malay culture, there's not so much reward giving, particularly verbal rewards. You don't tell people, I really like what you did a lot, right? You wait until they do something wrong with it. And you expect them to do the right thing and tell them when they've done the wrong thing. But that doesn't work as well. I mean, just because it's a cultural thing. In the beginning, you'll feel a little uncomfortable. And also, apparently, I mean, like I notice when I watch TV and I see programs translated into Bahasa, I've seen at least a dozen different English words for something good translated as baik. So, you know, try and learn a dozen different words if you talk to the kids in English. If not, find variations in Bahasa, I don't know what you call it in Singapore. Bahasa Melayu, oh, okay. Find various ways to say it. You don't want to say the same thing over and over. Once a teacher wanted to impress me that she was using a lot of reward with the kids. So I was observing the classroom, and she walked down the row, at each child's desk, she looks at what the child's doing. Very good, very good, very good, very good. Now, that isn't very rewarding. You know, you have to do it with sincerity. You have to do variation, and make the reward truly rewarding. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Just about survey and 100%. I just want to know how long it takes you to come up to this 100%. How long does a parent take
To see some positive change.
Yeah, to see the positive change.
Well, if you were to ask any of the people who work with us, who have tried this, usually you'll see little tiny things in a few days. But even in a few months, you're still not going to get total turnaround, right? Total change may take a year or two, but certainly within a month, you should expect to see noticeable positive change. You know, no miracles, but noticeable positive change within a month. It would be almost impossible to be doing this with children for a month and not see positive change. Sometimes, honestly, you just see it right on the spot. I mean, you do it and you see the children change just right away.
What's your consistency from us, from parents, from teachers?
Now, but the technique is powerful enough that even, say for instance, you didn't understand it very well and you didn't really use it all the time and you weren't overly committed to it, but you still sort of do it, you'll see something positive. And the more you do and the better you do it, the more you will see and the quicker you'll see it. But it's really hard to do it at all without seeing some positive change. Because of that thing I said about the lawfulness. You put a certain amount of input in and you get a certain amount of result out. So you should expect to see something reasonably quickly. I mean, when I was in Indonesia a few months ago, I visited a school where, to be honest, it was partly my fault. The teachers had come here for some training and they focused very heavily on me saying, don't punish. They missed the part about don't be permissive. So the classrooms were really out of control. And so I did a class in front of some of the teachers with between about 35 kids in the class. And I was able to get almost perfect attending behavior and sitting in the seat behavior for 25 minutes with no bad behavior, just by a little technique that I used. I don't want to really suggest it because it was a little too powerful to use. But so you can make changes really, really quickly.
How can you assure yourself that you have actually, used the argument to the best of your ability?
Well, I mean, honestly, in the beginning, you probably won't be doing it all that well, right? It's all a shaping process. So you should always be, even if you've noticed through the day things that you haven't done so well, you can use those as learning experiences. So the same thing that you do with the kids, you do with yourself. yourself. You've done something good, reward yourself for it. You did something wrong, give yourself some kind discipline, which means basically just correct it without being harsh to yourself, and then be happy that you learned what you learned from it. Because really, nobody's going to do, I still don't do it perfectly. You know, it'll probably take forever. We have to change society before we'll all do it perfectly. So don't worry about doing it perfectly. Just do it as well as you can, and every day try to improve. So you don't think he has anything neurologically wrong with him? See, personally, I don't think what's called hyperactivity is a chemical deficiency in the brain. I think that it's a learned behavior. And also, all behaviors are going to fall on a normal curve. Some people will do a lot, some people will do a little. The amount of activity children do go from very little to really a lot. But if a child is doing a really lot of behavior, but they rush around from point to point, and they do this good thing, and they study, and they're helpful here, and they wash some dishes, and this, you don't call them hyperactive. It's when they're very active and doing negative behaviors that we call them hyperactive. And I'm convinced when I look at the development of these children that this is learned behavior. They have learned to do it. If it is true they have learned to do it, it is true they can learn to undo it. And so that self-control game I talked about earlier, I've used that with hyperactive kids before in classrooms. Once that they won't stay in their seat for more than 5 seconds or something. I mean, even when they're in standard 2 or 3 or 4, they still won't stay in their seat for more than 5 or 10 seconds, and they're up and around. And I've had a lot of success with that self-control method. And developing a good relationship with them and getting them to come and tell me how successful they've been staying in their seat for a certain amount of time, and then being very rewarding to them for that. And also for giving them, if you can find it, high energy activities to do that are positive, and giving them a lot of reward for the completion of the positive activities. And without really seeing the situation, that's about all I can really say. In America, I understand there's something like 40% of the children now are on drugs to manage their behavior, which I think is an absolutely shameful thing. Really, more than even a sin, I think it's also a crime. And in Islam, I think we don't want to resort to that. So I would really give that self-control game some try, and be very rewarding for the success the child has with them. And if there are some other kids that can play with it, it's good to have several badly behaved kids together to play this game, and then challenge them to try and beat each other. And so they're actually now getting reward and seeing it as a high priority behavior to be able to control yourself. And then they have proof that they can also. So maybe we'll need to quit me so we can have time for lunch and then to get to your next place. So look, I thank you very, very much for making the great effort to come here and caring enough about your kids and about Islam and about the future of the world to come and hear some of these things. Like I said, probably everything I told you is not perfect, but it's, while not perfect, most of it is close to, probably quite close to true and very helpful. And please don't just go away. If you thought this was a nice talk, one of the worst things to do is just go away and think, oh, I had a nice talk. It's to go away and actually do something with these things. And if you know and associate with each other, help each other by rewarding each other and talking to each other about the successes you have, and share them with each other so that they can be more rewarding. And may Allah bless your efforts to help the children, and may you be a very positive influence in their lives and in their Islamic development. Assalamu alaikum to you all.